Hello and welcome back. I'm very excited about our next guest and topic. Today we are talking emotional intelligence and event strategy with Noel Naylor. So tell us a bit. This is your first time on the show.
It is.
Yes, so we're very excited to have you. Tell us a bit about your background, what you do in your daily life, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay, so again, thank you for having me on here. I'm very excited. So I currently am an assistant professor of hospitality, tourism, and event management at Stockton University. We are located in Galloway, New Jersey, and Atlantic City, New Jersey. And on a daily basis, right now we are doing lots of great things. We are really taking a deep dive into improving our curriculum and offering event management specific courses at the same time trying to have a huge impact in the industry.
I love that personally because for me, I have a master's degree in this from George Washington University. And when I was getting that a few years back, many people were like, I didn't even know I could study that. So I love hearing that, we're working on building up the future of the next generation in our industry. So thank you for the work that you do. Tell us a bit about the work that you've done with emotional intelligence.
Sure. So over the years, I've actually only switched over to higher education in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. So prior to that, 15 years in the entertainment industry and got lots of exposure to events, all different facets, all the way up through gaming. And as I kind of came full circle, I did a lot of research on just general human interaction. And I started to look at recently, like, how do we connect that to the events industry? Mm-hmm. And then the light bulb went off, which is when we think about really changing the dynamic of the events industry and trying to design that bucket list event, right? Because we all want to design that event.
Of course.
There are certain considerations we have to focus about. One of those is emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, who are watching at home, what is emotional intelligence?
I was hoping you were going to ask me that. So first, it's super confusing because a lot of people refer to it as EQ.
Okay.
And the whole idea behind emotional intelligence and the other kind of intelligence, which is generally we learn things and we're able to apply skills. That's one type of intelligence. That's where we get IQ. EQ is all about our emotions. And it really focuses on our own self-awareness. How do we regulate those emotions? And then how do we really start to channel our motivation to get people to come around one goal and start to use that to influence behavior and even change our own behavior? If I can, how I like to get people to think of it is we all have a superpower. Okay. So what's your superpower?
Mine?
If you had to think about just one.
I mean, most people would say social media.
Social media. So what within social media is your...
Connecting with people.
Connecting with people.
Yeah.
So I would say mine is a multitasker. So the first part about emotional intelligence is understanding what everyone's superpower is around us because we can't influence behavior until we know what everyone's behavior is that we're working with.
Right.
So this whole idea is about really taking the time, as you said earlier, to make that connection, to build that relationship and start to generate greater appreciation and empathy for someone else's perspective.
So I'm glad you mentioned empathy. What role does empathy have in emotional intelligence?
If I had to say, it's the largest, if not the most critical, because, often we say that, we're going to walk in your shoes, but what does it really mean to sit there for a minute, think about it, and then really start to see if you can truly see from the other person's perspective. Right. And not only see that, appreciate that, integrate that into your event design, or for a minute, step back. Mm-hmm. Give full control to someone else.
Right.
It's this idea of there's a connection between being humble and being empathetic. And although most of us think we can do it,
right.
The second we describe ourselves as being able to do it, we probably can't.
Right. And I think that's interesting, the idea of walking in someone's shoes, because ultimately that's the goal. And especially when you're talking about segmentation and personalization with events right now and event design, the idea of putting yourself in someone's shoes when it's multiple people with completely different goals and personalities and emotional, things that are going on with themselves, it becomes a very difficult task. So what can meeting professionals do to get themselves to fully understand their attendees?
So that's a great question. So the first thing that we can do, and this is something that I even have to practice, is first you need to recognize how you think. Are you someone that's really big picture? Do you like the rules? Do you like the guidelines?
I know a lot of people like that.
Yeah. Do you want to see the numbers? And really take a step back.
Yeah.
So instead of always jumping into immediate strategy and execution and event setup, let's focus on who has a stake in the game. And not only that stake, do we all share the same aim? And really start to understand and ask the questions that sometimes we avoid. We put in email instead of picking up the phone.
Not me. I'm millennial.
And start to have that. It's really going to be hard for you.
Yeah, I know.
And start to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And if we can start to have that conversation and ask the questions like, hey, what motivates you? What does event success look like to you? And not only that, how do you want people and even yourself to be different as a result of participating in the event? So you walk in the door one way. How do you want to walk out the door after the event?
Right.
And that really, although it sounds simple, a lot of event planners and those outside of the event industry struggle with thinking about that behavior change and really trying to position themselves at the front end, what that will even look like.
Right, that transformative experience. So if someone can't answer, like what if you ask that question and someone can't answer that? Like what do you recommend the steps they take to get to that point where they can think strategically about that and answer that question?
So the first one is we have to redefine stakeholder. The stakeholder is not always the person that has the money. Now, yes, they do control the event and make it happen.
Yeah.
But we just have to think about that general connection, which is I have a stake in the event. I might be the participant. I might be the vendor, whatever it looks like. But start to see if we can gather all of those around one aim. And that aim needs to be the change in behavior. What is it that we want people to say, do, and experience? And start there and start asking those questions. And a lot of the times, guess what? They're not questions we're asking now. And a stakeholder is going to struggle to answer that because they're going to be like, well, the objective is we should generate X amount of revenue or we should have X amount of people, attend. That's success. It's beyond that. So the more we ask that question, the more we are going to be able to get people to answer the question. So for example, just in this session today, I'm hoping as I talk about stakeholders, there's a lot of great event strategy templates that are out there.
Yeah.
There's one that I have as a particular favorite that's a free offering to professionals. And maybe you're going to search the internet today as a result of this.
Right.
That's a change in behavior. It's something tangible. Those are the things that are going to continue to drive and change our industry and make people more aware about their emotional intelligence.
So what would you say is like the number one thing for an event professional if they wanted to start thinking more strategically about this? What is the number one thing they could start doing?
So I like to call it they need to intensify their attention.
Okay. I like that.
Now, a lot of times, apparently, intensity is a negative, but in my book, it's a positive, which is to start to pay attention to those details that maybe seemed really trivial before. What are the preferences of the client? What and how does your team react, not to what you're saying, but to each other? To really start to focus on the human connection, the interaction, all of the social cues that maybe before you were either too busy to really pay attention to or too concerned with driving influence in the room. Because if you start to build those other connections, your influence is going to come naturally.
Awesome. So if someone wants to hear and learn more information, where can they find that?
So it is literally as simple as typing in Google emotional intelligence.
It's that simple, everybody.
It is really that simple.
Just Google it.
The challenge is that just because you learn it doesn't mean you can apply it, right? So that is the challenge. But to get a better idea, that's where I would start. Just to understand, what makes up emotional intelligence. There are these pillars about awareness, the motivation, the empathy, and there's some really great resources that are out there that will define them step by step, give you free self-assessments to help you show how you progress. You just have to make sure you're honest. The only person that you cheat out of that is you.
Yourself. Yeah.
And then share it with those around you. Make everybody aware that, hey, we're unique and we're unique because we think differently. We need to start appreciating that if we want to be able to deliver higher quality, better experiences, and really progress our event strategy.
So is that what you would say is like the number one benefit of focusing on this, is those better programs and better events in general?
Better events, better collaboration, deeper relationships going forward. And then for you personally, it is making more calculated decisions versus just running in and they're not rational. So it's really about kind of taking a step back and carving out your own time. And that's something that everyone can really do every day to really improve their emotional intelligence. After you have that meeting, schedule 5 minutes for yourself and think about, what did you say? What do you think the perception was? And then take the time to ask someone else to validate that.
Right. I love that. I love that. If someone wants to get more information from you, how can they reach you?
I'd be more than happy to share my contact information. If you type in Stockton University, Hospitality, Tourism, and Event Management, I come right up there as a faculty member. My email, phone number is there, and I would be more than happy to help those become more aware and develop their emotional intelligence.
Great. Thank you so much. This is such a important topic that I have not heard many people discuss. So I'm very excited that this is the work that you're doing, that you're sharing this information here at IMEX. Thanks a lot, and we will be right back with our next guest.
Thank you.